Hello YouTube! Today we're redesigning one of the fandom's probably least favorite characters. It's funny that I put out a poll about how you guys feel about him, and most of you said he's just okay, but if you search his name on Tumblr, it seems like a different story. But I think he's neat, okay? Not because of how the show actually portrays him, but because he's got a lot of potential. Other than just being king one day. Sky is the crown prince of Eraklyon. His country is known for its many laws and their strict enforcement. It's wealthy from war and trade, and yet many of its citizens live in poverty. They can stoically get through the day-to-day, but it's nothing like the life of the poor of Solaria, whose country provides assistance with shelter and food. Some say the king's heavy control keeps the peace, and it's been this way for generations. Meanwhile, the upper class are able to live their lives mostly unaware of those struggles, and live their lives in castles and manors isolated on acres and acres of manicured land. For the young Prince Sky, these kinds of decorated, lavish homes were the norm. His family had not only the royal castle, but several vacation homes as well. Despite being raised to be a future ruler, Sky was often left to his own devices. He was not taught what life was like for the common citizen, not by his nannies, tutors, and definitely not by his parents. Sky's mother, Samara, had married into royalty, but she was suited perfectly for its benefits. A love of jewels, expensive garments, and gourmet cooking, and the idea that she was meant to have it all. Queen Samara is self-centered and materialistic, yet she still convinces herself she's a wonderful mother. Think like Lucille Bluth. Sky's father, on the other hand, was even more difficult to please. King Erendor is a man of few words and high expectations. It was rare for him and Sky to even see each other, yet there was always some instruction or ambition being relayed. Sky was expected to spend most of his time studying, with education being made to seem ever more important. However, it was really just a good way to keep him occupied. The king and queen felt they had much more important things to be doing than watching over a little snot-nosed kid after all. So Sky ended up spending a lot of time alone as a young boy. He didn't have royal galas to look forward to like Stella and Aisha did, as his family almost never attended them, and if they did, he stayed behind. The only time he got to have a friend is when his aunt and uncle came to visit and brought along his cousin Thorin. Actually, Sky has a few cousins, but the rest of them are much older, so when the rest of his aunts and uncles would visit, they would hang more around the adults. Thorin was still a few years older, but he and Sky always had fun at those family gatherings. Being a bit older and a bit wiser, Thorin picked up on the way the king and queen treated Sky, and presented to his own, a bit more well-adjusted parents, a concern for his cousin. And luckily they were a bit more caring and compassionate, so after a bit of drinking managed to convince Erendor and Samara that their son needed more of a social life if he were ever to be a good king. So, for his 10th birthday, they introduced him to his new gentleman-in-waiting. They had chosen the son of one of their royal guards, who was the same age as Sky, named Brandon. The two became best friends quickly, often running around outside and playing the way young kids do. Brandon had even gotten some training already from his father and would call himself Sky's Knight. Eventually, the two decided they wanted to attend Red Fountain and be specialists and go on cool adventures away from the castle. Sky and Brandon will still be swapping identities for a bit in the beginning, since it's just such a memorable part of the show for me. But after a lot of consideration, I have decided that they will not be doing it under duress. In one version of the show, I believe the Cinelume dub, they switch because Sky was the target of a criminal named Yoshinoya. This is what I grew up with. But in the, I think, 4Kids version, they switch just so Sky can see what it's like to feel normal for a while. Also, if I got those versions wrong, somebody in the comments please correct me, because I was searching and searching through multiple Wikipedias, and I looked through some episodes, and I could not figure out which one was which without just rewatching the whole series again, which I unfortunately don't have time to do, so there are a lot of different things going on in Season 1, and I think the revelation of their switch happens a bit too late. So I'm changing it to happen, like a few episodes in. Maybe, like, I don't know, 6? This is hypothetical. Anyways, it started as just the two boys joking around, and ended up with them talking about what Red Fountain would be like. Sky mentions how he's never really met other kids or made friends since he's the prince, and Brandon jokingly suggests that maybe he should try not being a prince this time. Then it just kind of snowballed. It would be fun at first for both of them. Sky gets to try making friends and putting on his mask of a regular guy, training to be a soldier, and Brandon gets to see what it's like being the royal, a position he's lived in the shadow of for years. Then they meet Bloom and Stella, and the guilt starts to get at them. They realize they don't know how to reveal the truth. Sky is still having trouble socializing, Brandon can't stand the way students and teachers start to suck up to him and ask for favors, and things are starting to get serious with the girls. I think with all the heavy subplots and tragedies in this series, this could be a bit more lighthearted and silly for a bit. We could get more insight into Sky and Brandon as characters, and maybe get some funny buddy shenanigans as it falls apart. Stella and Brandon start dating pretty early on, and it would definitely be eating him up inside until he starts to crack and convinces Sky to come clean. It would take a few days to process, but the girls would move past it, since it happens so early on and isn't revealed in a grand, shocking display alongside a secret fiancé, who we'll get to. Bloom already looked at Sky and saw the perfect knight in shining armor of her dreams. And she's still pretty new to magics at this point, so the guy she's mutually interested in turning out to be a literal prince isn't such a bad deal. The thing is, for my rewrite, Season 1 Sky kind of sucks. Yeah, he definitely has the look of a prince, he can walk the walk, but he's got a lot of issues. Underneath the persona he's made to please his parents, Sky is insecure, jealous, and pretty self-loathing. Of course he doesn't believe in himself after a lifetime of seemingly coming up short on his parents' expectations. He doesn't think he's good enough to be king, but he can't let other people know that. So, instead, he overcompensates, and comes off as arrogant, pretentious, and self-righteous. He gets jealous easily, since he's paranoid the people he cares about will start to see him the way he sees himself. Since so much of his life was spent trying to be who his royal parents wanted for a son, Sky doesn't have a very solid concept of who he is. This, when combined with being an out-of-touch rich kid and a strained relationship with the concept of being perceived by others, ends up making Sky actually pretty unlikable, which certainly doesn't help with his insecurities. But Bloom isn't the kind of girl that will put up with being treated poorly. She and Sky met at the commencement gala held by the big 3 schools at the start of every academic year. And at that point, she would think his name is Brandon, gentleman-in-waiting to Prince Sky of Eraklyon, the elusive prince whom Stella had been so excited to meet for the first time. Once the two pairs end up meeting, Stella runs off with Prince Sky, leaving Bloom alone to talk with Blondin. He is very nervous, not having his friend with him anymore, as he has to talk to a pretty girl, and really turns up the masking. At this point, Bloom is still brand new to this world, and all she sees is the knight in shining armor she's read in fairy tales and dreamed about since she was little. Tall, strong, and handsome, but with soft eyes and gentle hands, just like she'd drawn in her sketchbook and written in her fanfictions. Over the course of the night, while Darkar's shenanigans are on hold, the two dance and talk, and Sky learns about Bloom's sudden discovery of her powers, how she ended up at Althea, and how her whole life had changed so much so suddenly. That first night they met, Sky really started falling for her, more than he knew. He admires her passion for good, her curiosity and thirst for knowledge, and her dedication to being the best she can be. When the rest of the specialists come and meet the rest of the Winx, he sees how much she cares for her new friends, and how easily she makes the room light up and fill with laughter. At first, he probably Manic Pixie Dream Girls her a bit, but it's really important that he truly sees her, and cares for her as a person. He's envious, honestly, of her tenacity and wit, even if sometimes she can get a bit carried away. Maybe sometimes that envy manifests as him trying to calm her down or hold her back, but I don't think he would be very successful. If Sky wants to be with Bloom, he needs to work on himself, because most of their fighting is probably going to come from him not fully supporting her when she's on the move. Sky sees himself as the obvious choice for the leader of his team, and at first really only seems to see Brandon as an equal. He starts to realize he hasn't really made a strong connection with his classmates, or even teammates, the way Brandon has. And it only gets worse after the truth of their identities is revealed, especially when it comes to Riven. The two of them had had a kind of rivalry thing developing, but when Riven found out Sky was the royal, it took it to another level. He had found Brandon to be tolerable as prince despite his distaste for the government, but Sky was just too much. I'll talk about it more in his video, but Riven is actually from Eraklyon in my rewrite, and he didn't have a very easy time growing up there. Also in my version, Riven is kind of a better specialist than Sky. In the original show, we get this scene.
Come on, I don't need your help. Must be nice being a prince. You spend your whole life learning from the best.
I couldn't have beaten you if I hadn't put in the work.
But if my version of these boys were to fight, Riven would win. Sky follows protocol, and he has some advantages like height and reach, but Riven is a quick thinker and a very clever problem solver. I think he would be a really important player when it came to Sky's character growth, since he would be the one most willing to call him out on privilege and humble him. Don't get me wrong, Riven has his fair share of issues, and I certainly have thoughts on him, but truly he has worked hard to be where he is, at one of the top academies in all of Magix, and still being able to shine. With everything they'll go through together, I think by the end of the show, Sky and Riven would actually end up being really close, and I'd like to see scenes of them getting to open up to each other. As for Timmy, the other original member of the squad, I think he and Brandon would form a pretty strong friendship relatively quickly, but Sky would have a lot of trouble breaking down his walls. Timmy is polite, but not very comfortable around Sky. He doesn't particularly care about the whole royalty thing, but he was quick to pick up on a lot of the other flaws I mentioned before. I think Timmy and Bloom would get along first, actually, and he would have to try to stay professional with Sky while avoiding ending up in the crossfire of their drama. Eventually, when Sky starts to soften up and gain more emotional intelligence, he and Timmy would start to bond over things like other special missions by the school, or maybe a book series they both like. As Sky's journey of personal growth continues, he'll start to have a bit of an identity crisis. Chipping away at the mask he's created will lead to him learning more about who he truly is and wants to be, and the support network around him helping him past his insecurities and anxieties will lead to a young man who is able to truly feel his own self-worth in full for the first time. The more Sky's able to work through his issues, the more he will be able to embrace his role as future king as one he is truly worthy of, while also now being able to view himself as a real person and more than just an heir, and it's going to cause a bit of a disconnect. For his first outfit, I wanted Sky to look like a rich guy dressing normal. He wears a knit sweater, slacks, and sneakers. It's not flashy, but each piece is certainly of the highest quality material and construction. The outfit is sophisticated, yet casual, but what it really lacks, to me, is personality. His second outfit is a bit more interesting, and I want it to reflect how his mindset has begun shifting. Now a bit more comfortable with his title, Sky wears a jacket handed down from his father. It's meant to be part of a formal 3-piece set, but the rest is missing, showing how he still values his father's approval, but it no longer defines him, even as they begin to work on their relationship. He pairs the jacket with a t-shirt and jeans, clothing that is distinctly working class, more down to earth, or I guess Magix. Finally, he wears handmade suede boots, which in my mind he bought from a shoemaker on Earth while visiting Bloom's family, showing his adventurous spirit and also supporting a local business and skilled craftsman. Sky's outfits aren't meant to be as fashion-forward as what the girls have gotten so far, but I really wanted to put extra meaning behind them because of that. What it comes to altogether is Sky is ready to be brave, to be responsible, someone people can depend on, and to work towards being a better ruler than those who came before him. It won't be an overnight change, and it most likely won't be linear, but he's putting in effort. By season 4 of the original show, Sky is already king of Eraklyon. For my reboot, some elements of season 4 would be folded into season 2, but this is not one of them. I have this story planned out for a 3-season format, and I'm not even sure I would want Sky officially crowned by the end of it. Unless we decide to have Erendor fully die at some point, I don't see why he would give over the crown. However, by the ending, I would want Sky in a place where the audience can envision him taking over and actually being a compassionate, competent ruler, with Bloom by his side. Yeah, they're still an endgame couple, but I want to make it clear that they rule as equals, and Bloom isn't just a passive queen that, raises kids all day. Not that there's anything wrong with that, I just don't see Bloom sitting idly by after everything she's been through. And they also parent as equals. I mean, Mike and Vanessa were both very active, loving parents to Bloom, so she would expect nothing less. Love Mike and Vanessa. And after the way Sky grew up, he would want to be there for his kids as much as he possibly can. Quick detour, since we're talking about Eraklyon's future queen. I mentioned earlier that I was changing the timeline a bit, and, well, I'm actually changing a lot of stuff. But what I meant specifically was that I was separating the reveal of Sky and Brandon switching places from the reveal of Diaspro. They would confess the switch after, a few episodes, instead of there being a shocking reveal all the way in episode 17. This way, the name confusion and lie doesn't go on as long, but also, the Diaspro reveal gets to pack the punch all on its own. Sky had heard talk of a possible arrangement back when he was a kid, that there was a noble family with a daughter who could be the perfect fiancé for the young prince one day. That she was even a fairy, and how nice would that be to add to the royal line. But it had been years since then, and, well, you know how Sky had it in the castle. Nobody was really keeping him caught up with things like that. The reveal could still happen at the day of the royals. Maybe Sky even planned on introducing his parents to Bloom during that visit, only to be surprised with the announcement that the engagement was official. In the aftermath, Brandon could even tell Stella that he remembered hearing it mentioned once or twice growing up, but they never thought it was more than a rumor among the castle staff. This revelation would not only break Bloom's heart, but Sky's as well. She would demand answers from him, and he would have to look at her fighting for answers and standing up for their relationship and be like, of course she would. But at that point, Sky had still never stood up to his parents in any way that really mattered, and all he could give her were apologies. I think that there would be a few episodes where Sky was forced to spend time courting Diaspro for the royal image, while Bloom throws herself deeper into the mystery of her past to cope. If you remember, in Aisha's video, I mentioned that she would join the Winx midway through season 1, having been attending Althea under a false ID. Well, I think this would be a great time for her and Bloom to really bond, as they get more information on Darkar during Bloom's investigations, and the two could start training with each other and venting their frustrations, which could also foreshadow Aisha's own arranged marriage problem in season 2. Anyways, Sky, throughout everything, is still in love with Bloom, and the situation is eating away at him until finally he can't take it. He storms away from Diaspro during a walk through the gardens or something, and bursts into the throne room, finally putting his foot down. This is a major changing point for Sky, and his father can see that. Erendor and Samara had an arranged marriage themselves, but they were lucky enough to actually fall in love and value their partnership. They agreed to temporarily call it off, and declare they will discuss the matter further at a later time, eventually calling it off for good. In the end, Samara actually grows quite fond of Bloom. Sky's relationship with his parents would eventually get better, but it would always be a struggle. However, Sky would grow close with Mike and Vanessa, much to Bloom's enjoyment. These meaningful connections and examples of healthy relationships would be so important for Sky. And, at Mike's suggestion, Sky even steps down as official leader of his squad, initiating a more team-oriented approach to missions, and for a while, the boys take turns leading, until they pick a new captain. One day, Sky and Bloom will take everything they've learned and, together, build Eraklyon up from a harsh, unforgiving kingdom to a place where people can feel safe walking down the street. A place that thrives with the love of a bonded community and no one has to go to sleep hungry. A place they can be proud to raise their own family. A place warm, like Domino. Wow, I don't know why I made this video so long. They probably won't all break 20 minutes, but I really enjoyed this one. I know liking Sky puts me in the minority of the fandom, but the Sky in my head is a complex character with lots of potential. I hope this version is more palatable for you guys. I've been really excited for this redesign and to talk about what I'd do with his character. It's kind of a deconstruction of the perfect Prince Charming, and I think him loving Bloom for her fiery side is just so sweet. I know there's people who want Sky to be kind of like a himbo or a golden retriever boyfriend, but I think Bloom would want somebody who's a little more on her level when it comes to seeking justice and being kind of insane. But don't worry, there will be a golden retriever boyfriend at some point. This video is long enough. If you want to see what I do with the rest of the specialists, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!